your trip to Portugal kind of got cut short, but the couple games you were able to be there, and I know you said you didn't take away wins and losses, but outside of the team bonding, were there any things that stood out to you?
You know, like you said, fortunately our team's trip didn't get cut short. My part in it did, but had tremendous confidence that we wouldn't skip a beat in terms of what we were trying to get accomplished over there. And like I said, you know, prior to leaving, that this was way more about the non-basketball part of the actual Portugal trip. Certainly taking advantage of the extra practices that the NCAA allows when you go on one of these tours was paramount for us to just get acclimated to our new team, certainly our new guys, to understand what we're trying to do. And it was a much different summer than the first summer in terms of having everyone here. We had everyone in our program here for July, and then we had one player that wasn't with us in June because of a transcript issue that was worked out. But just different mindset, different place for all of us. And in terms of what we got accomplished, like I said, I mean, we had a pretty good idea that the competition wasn't going to be, you know, what we would see over here, even in the non-conference portion of the schedule, not even talking about the SEC. So we were prepared for that, and our mentality was, you know, just play everyone equal minutes, switch around lineups, look at different lineups, and more importantly, just have fun with it. And certainly the guys were excited for the games, but for us it was more just the experience of going over there together and what we could gain from that.
So the coach is right, Danny Pete.
Coach, along those lines, just talk about some of the newcomers and what impressed you about them. Okay, Andrew had a good few days out there in Portugal, and just anybody else really kind of impressed you? It's something that really benefited from this trip.
Again, I wouldn't read too much into any video that you watched, or certainly any box scores that are available, because, you know, we really just played equal minutes. I mean, I was paying attention to that more than anything else. I had a guy to my right that was, you know, we didn't have staff folks over there, so that was my number one thing, is to just make sure everybody had opportunities. And you know, people are going to ask about the three-point percentage, I'm sure, and you know, we made a bunch over there, but I mean, they were pretty open and on rhythm, and there wasn't, you know, a lot of size, you know, closing out on the open shooters, and we were happy that they made them. But at the same time, it was nothing like it's going to feel when we get into November, December. But yeah, the new guys, you know, what a great opportunity for them. It was probably more beneficial for them than the returnees in terms of you know, getting used to playing in the system that we're trying to implement, and just getting comfortable. And a lot of guys, you know, did well over there, returnees and new.
Steph, go ahead.
Coach, among the guys who didn't play was Deshaun on that trip. Do you have any update on his status, and do you expect him to be ready when the season comes around?
Yeah, Rams had foot surgery. I couldn't even tell you the exact date. It was weeks ago. So he's been on a scooter ever since. He's still on one. We're taking our time, you know, with his recovery. We expect him back sometime this fall. I would say in the next few weeks rather than months. So if everything goes as planned, I mean, he'll certainly not miss any games, but he'll have some catching up to do from the obvious of cardio, just his rhythm, etc. But so far so good for you know, getting him back on the timeline that they put in place.
Front row to coach as well.
We've seen you guys schedule a lot of those, neutral site games. I know you had a few of them last year, but a lot more this year. What do you feel like you guys get out of those games? Why do you like those games so much?
I would love to have more home games, but it takes two to tango, and it's hard. You know, every coach in America talks to their people about how difficult scheduling is, and unfortunately, it's August 23rd, and we're still scheduling. We still haven't gotten everything complete. We're closer. We're getting down to it where what happens in the fall is there's only X amount of teams that have dates and games left, and so you have to almost pair up. You're forced to pair up to get your schedule complete, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Is we've got 1 or 2 dates that we haven't completely scheduled yet, but in terms of the neutral site games, there's a lot of different reasons for it. Some of them are due to NIL opportunities that promoters will put on, and we're always trying to get in that market if we can. Some of it is just to play quality opponents, and when you play in those neutral site games, you have a better chance to get a higher quad 1 or quad 2 opportunity than you do if it's at home, even though both teams look at it the same way, where I don't have to play in front of each other's fan bases, but a better opportunity to get a quad 1 or quad 2 game than it would be if you played them at home. It would be a quad 3 or a quad 2 or what have you, depending on how they do in the season. So there's certainly a lot of strategy that goes into it when you're trying to put together those 13 non-league games, and you want to have enough opportunities to put yourself in a position going into the SEC where you're going to get plenty of them. And I kind of think every year depends on what kind of team you think you're going to have. And for instance, this year, when it completely gets itself unveiled, it's more challenging than it was last year. And we had a good schedule last year, but I think there hopefully will be more opportunities for quad 1, quad 2 games before we get into the SEC.
Who's second row middle next to Morgan?
Going off of that, I'm just curious what maybe you learned from last year's scheduling and non-conference, and sort of how it affects seeding at the Power 5 level, and how you took that into your process this offseason.
Yeah, what we found in our research is that, right? You got to play good teams to get rewarded for it. Certainly everyone has a different philosophy. Some folks are like, we got so many opportunities in our league, depending on the strength of your particular league, that they want to pull back a little bit. Because what you don't want to do is have too many and get caught in a situation where the losses pile up, and there's data out there that says a certain number of losses, regardless of how well you do in some games, you're almost doomed. So we're trying to find that right medium and mix, but we just really want to try to get quad 1 and quad 2 wins like everybody else, but you've got to trust data, and there's a lot of people out there in that space right now where they're projecting, and it changes every day depending on rosters, but it's somewhat of a educated guess, if you will, and we're doing the same just to try to put our team in position to have opportunities. If we're good enough to win enough games and be considered for an at-large possibility, you've got to have the numbers to back it up.
Got time for a couple more. We'll go to Paul, Steph, and then back to Justin.
Just kind of update where your current schedule is, what you guys are doing as far as workouts, and then when the first day of official practice is.
I know you guys follow it. There's been some releases of particular games. Like I said earlier, we're still in the midst of doing that, but I think it'll end up being a very good and challenging schedule for us. We are just getting back on the court. We got started in school last Wednesday, so we've let them take that first 5 or 6 days to try to get back into the routine of academics and a full campus, and just being excited about being in a new year. And we're just getting back on the court, and we get the X amount of hours now until what they do is whatever your first game is for your particular school. It's not a hard date that you can start full practices. It's 42 days backwards from the date you open. So for us, it's like September 27th, and then once that day hits, you're back to the 20 hours a week in the full practices. So from now until September 27th, we'll have limited access to them. They'll have 4 hours with us on the court, and then they'll have 4 hours in strength and conditioning department with Coach Walker. And so it'll be good. We'll ease back into it, and I'm sure some guys are back in summer shape rather than basketball shape, and we'll have to work on that as well.
Coach, when you look at the offseason y'all had after, making the NCAA tournament, the expectations kind of start to rise going into year two. I guess, how do you kind of handle that with players, understanding that, whether it be on social media or whatnot, there's going to be, good things said about them, expectations set, how you kind of handle that with them?
Yeah, in this day and age, you can't, hide from it. It's certainly going to be different than last year. I think most coaches probably are in the mode of lowering expectations this time of the year, especially if you've been around the block once or twice. And if I come into these situations, and when I have the opportunity to talk to media, if I'm sitting here talking about how tough it's going to be, and trying to lower expectations when you're coming off a team that went to the tournament and has that many people back, people will be rolling their eyes at me, and we try to tell the truth to everybody when we're dealing with these kind of situations. But we're going to lean into it. We're going to lean into it. It's already been discussed, and we're not going to sneak up on anybody this year that maybe we did last year early in the season a little bit, and pop some people and surprise some people. That won't be the case this year. So it's going to be different. It's going to be a different feel, and but that's where you want to be. You want to be recognized. You want to have people taking notice of your team and your program, and that's where we're at going into year two. And hopefully the guys will understand that, that I'm not saying we're going to have an X on our back, but we're not going to be taken lightly, and people are going to be preparing for us and, using our last year's success and who we got back in their team rooms when they're trying to prepare to play our team. So I wouldn't, call it pressure or anything like that. It's just reality, and we're going to have to change our mindset a little bit.
Go ahead and wrap this up.
I know you said that mainly you were in Portugal, you were just looking at getting everyone equal minutes, but I'm curious just how much were you able to take away about which maybe lineups were meshing well together and combinations of guys were playing well off each other and feeding off each other?
Yeah, I don't really delve into that too deep in August. We're not going to play till November, and we're going to have these 6 weeks limited practice, and then we'll have 30 practices until we play the first game with a couple scrimmage opportunities. So that will be looked at a little bit deeper when we get to that. But it was fun. It was good to see the new guys have some success. They're excited. But again, I would take any results over there, individually or collectively, with a grain of salt. And I'm not trying to downplay some guys and some success they had, but the reality of it is, the competition just wasn't up to snuff.